All right, good afternoon. You guys have hung it out a long day, but we're going to bring it all to a head. I told you right when Guy got off that what you're going to see is the most powerful evidence to who these entities really are, right here today. I try to bring them whenever I have these opportunities to do these talks. The talk I'm doing today is Unholy Communion, Casualties of a Cosmic War. In relation to our conference title, War of the Worlds, the Invisible Battle, we are talking about a cosmic war. I think you're getting the gist of that from the prior talks that we've been able to share here today. The one thing is, when you have a war, you have casualties. And what I'm going to share with you is the information about these casualties because of this war. What I talk about is alien abduction. It's an experience that people have, and it's been going on for quite some time. Even Guy relayed the idea that this is something that's actually been happening through history in other forms. I must give you a warning. I do this at every talk. A lot of you come here with preconceived notions about this experience and about the UFO phenomenon. The warning is, the following information may change your preconceived notions of the alien abduction experience. If you don't want that changed, please leave now. I don't want to be the one that's responsible for making you angry. A lot of people come to these talks wanting to hear certain things. I'm not here to scratch your itching ears. I'm here to share with you evidence of real research that may go against things you've been hearing in this field. What are close encounters, and where does this fit in to the close encounter scheme? In 1972, a scale of measurement was established for alien encounters. When a UFO is sighted, it is called a close encounter of the first kind. When evidence is collected, whether it be trace evidence on the ground, anything that's left, marks, things like that, it is known as a close encounter of the second kind. When contact is made with extraterrestrials, it is known as a close encounter of the third kind. And I think we're all familiar, we're all old enough, well, most of us here. If you guys haven't seen it, there's a movie out there called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And that one deals with extraterrestrial contact. The next level is abduction, is a close encounter of the fourth kind. The group that I represent, and I am head of, is CE4 Research Group. My website is ce4research.com. The CE4 stands for Close Encounter of the Fourth Kind. This encounter has been the most difficult to document in all of the UFO research, is the abduction experience. Alien abduction. Simple description, definition of alien abduction. Taken from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. The terms alien abduction or the abduction phenomenon describe, and I capitalize, subjectively real memories of being taken secretly and or against one's will by apparently non-human entities and subjected to complex physical and psychological, physiological procedures. Remember that word, subjectively real memories. Right now, I want to share with you a short video. I've always felt that this was a very powerful video. It's an example of what people go through with the abduction experience. You've probably, if you guys have been studying this field at all for any amount of years, you've probably seen this video. It airs on TV just about every year. This one's from the A&E channel. Sightings also had this same one on their show when they were on. But this is about a particular family that has gone through this abduction experience, and it talks about what it's done to this family and how it's affected them. And you'll keep in mind that casualties word that I used as you watch this.
Ordinary, everyday people that this has happened to. And it can happen to anybody. I didn't want to believe that it happened to me, but it did.
Joyce Ahrens and her family believe that what happened to them was not an isolated incident. One highly controversial study conducted by the Roper Poll suggests that hundreds of thousands, even millions of Americans, have memories that indicate that they may have been kidnapped by aliens. Abduction researchers believe these abductions happen generation after generation, as this family from West Plains, Missouri can attest. Their story starts one evening in the fall of 1976, in the presumed safety of their home.
I remember just lying there, trying to relax. I'd opened my eyes, I seen a red light flowing across the ceiling, which it almost looked like the Aurora Borealis.
Dan and Joyce Ahrens say the room was dark except for the unusual light, which they describe as about 4 or 5 feet in diameter. They say it hovered over the baby's crib at the foot of their bed where their 1-year-old daughter Heather slept. Dan says that when he tried to get up, he found himself immobilized.
That was the most frightening feeling I guess I've ever had my whole life, is not being able to move.
I was screaming for him to help me because I couldn't move. And I didn't know that he was paralyzed too. And we both sat up in the bed at the same time. And I said, what the hell was that?
The incident was over in what seemed like an instant. The baby was standing up in her crib looking dazed but unharmed. Dan and Joyce thought they had just shared a scary dream. That is until 1992, 16 years later. Dan, a computer technician, was working at his keyboard when suddenly he was seized by panic.
I immediately thought I was having a heart attack because I started sweating real bad. My ears were ringing. It was a real tight feeling in my head.
Dan was rushed to the emergency room where doctors ran tests and ordered x-rays. When the results were in, they concluded that Dan had suffered an anxiety attack and sent him home, but the symptoms persisted.
To see him like that was devastating. He couldn't leave the house. He was so scared.
After 6 weeks of constant fear, Dan sat down in front of the TV trying to relax. He turned on a movie that happened to be about alien abductions. Dan experienced a sudden revelation.
There was one part in that movie that this little creature, whatever, was kind of peeking out from around the door, and it was in the dark and the shadows, you know, and everything. And I immediately just, my heart started racing, and I just kind of completely went out of it again.
Dan wondered, was his anxiety somehow related to the subject of the movie? He later chanced upon another television show about alien abductions and watched an interview with therapist John Carpenter, the National Director of Abduction Research for the Mutual UFO Network. Dan immediately contacted Carpenter for help.
He suffered from a panic disorder at that point in time, and he had flashbacks and nightmarish images of these beings, but didn't understand what was going on and needed some relief.
Dan agreed to an on-camera hypnosis session with Carpenter, during which he revisited that memorable night in 1976, the night he saw the red light over the baby's crib. This time, under hypnosis, he remembers more. He recalls cowering in the corner of his bed as he watched alien beings take his daughter Heather from her crib.
He went to the crib.
He went to the crib.
Picked her up.
Uh-huh.
I can't move.
You can't move. You don't have any control over what's happening to you.
took her.
He took her.
Under separate hypnosis, Dan's wife, Joyce, recalled the same sequence of events. They both say little beings marched them outside, and together the family was floated onto a spaceship.
I never wanted it to happen to my children. I didn't realize until later that it had. But when they took her, I couldn't do anything.
Heather, now 22 and married, remembers a series of abductions beginning in childhood, when she was forced to play telepathic games with the aliens.
How do you play the game?
If I pick up that one, he'll let me go.
What are you feeling?
I want to go home.
Mm-hmm. What does he tell you about that?
If I pick it up, he'll let me go.
The Aarons family believes alien kidnappers have not only intruded in the lives of their children, but are now visiting one of their grandchildren.
He calls them his little buddies that come in his room and play. He said he wanted to watch the ship leave. I'm not going to tell him that it's not real, because it is real.
Skeptics would say that Dan, Joyce, and Heather could have constructed their stories together before hypnosis.
But then they'd have to know how to answer the trick questions and the leading suggestions which I provide. Plus, there are many details they wouldn't know about that we would be looking for as markers for truthfulness and reliability with other abduction data.
Researchers also believe abductees are sincere because of another consistently reported feature of abduction accounts: the insertion of alien implants.
I turned my head to the right, and this taller being came over. And he kept telling me that it would be okay, that they wouldn't hurt me. And then they took this very long needle, and they put it up my right nostril, and I closed my eyes when I heard it crunch. And then I became very calm.
Objects said to be these implants have been recovered. MIT's David Pritchard has examined the composition of one of these reported implants in a laboratory and contends there is absolutely no physical proof of alien activity.
If we don't find physical evidence, and we haven't, then we have to lump this in the category of fairies, elves, near-death experiences people report, or we're going to be back to the days of the medicine men running our society.
With the help of hypnosis, Dan's anxiety subsided and he returned to work. But what once seemed out of this world has now become a part of his life.
If this is some sort of mental thing that's happening to people, then why aren't they out, why aren't the scientists or the doctors or whatever trying to find a cure?
Not something you want to enjoy or want to experience. 10 years that thing has been playing on the A&E channel. On the Sightings channel, they played it for years. This family has gone through hell with this experience. How many of you out here are fathers? Raise your hand if you're a dad. Okay. Raise your hand if you're a mom. Can you guys imagine allowing this to happen to your children if you had an opportunity to make it not happen? Keep that in mind. Can you imagine what these people have gone through, realizing that they had no control to be able to prevent this from happening to their children?